Hi, this is Lady Lecture K, and this is a Dreams Gadget tutorial. Today we are starting on our new section, which is sound, and the first gadget in that section is the speaker gadget. Now, I've been trying to make this tutorial for a couple of hours now, and I think this particular gadget is a bit buggy. It seems to do some very weird stuff. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it does something and it makes sense, and sometimes it does something and it doesn't make sense. So I'm going to try and give you a general consensus about how you would use this speaker, but let me just tell you, multiple times I have tried to do exactly the same thing over and over, and it has slightly different effects, which is really rather weird. Anyway, when you are putting music into a dream, most people won't even go to this section. They won't touch this. What they'll do is they'll just go search for a piece of music, pop it down in their world, and there it is. It's playing. There's that piece of music called Mild Moments. There it is, it's playing. Okay, so that's all they're doing. They're not really using the tools at their disposal. And they might find actually that by using a timeline like this with a piece of music in, there is some limitations that you wish the timeline had. One of the things that you might wish is you wish that the timeline could play the entire piece of music, and you could set the 3D panning for the entire piece of music in one place. At the moment, the timeline doesn't have that facility. Each individual instrument does. You can set the 3D panning. Now, 3D panning is just the surround sound for the sound. So it makes it sound like it's in the world. So as you step back from it, it gets quieter. And as you step forward towards it, it gets louder. You can also set within here whether the noise comes out of the speakers or whether it comes out of the controller. So you can change it so it comes out of the DS4. So that's something that you can do on each individual instrument part, but not on the entire piece of music. You might be thinking, I wish I could do that. You can do that. The functionality for that is in the speaker. Right, the other thing you might be wanting to do is you might want to make this very echoey, the entire piece of music, so it sounds like it's in a cathedral or a cave or something like that. You can't do that with every piece, the whole piece of music. Again, you can do reverb. Let's see if I can find it. Is it that one? Yeah, reverb and delay on each individual piece of instrument, but you can't do it for the entire musical piece through the timeline, but you can with the speaker gadget. So the speaker gadget is like an extension to the things that ought to be in the timeline but aren't, is in the speaker gadget. The other one that it does is sometimes you might want that there was an envelope for making visualizers of the sounds that are coming out of your piece of music. You can do it for each individual instrument. So from here, I can go to here and I can get individual notes, and I can get the envelope, which is the sound wave coming out for each individual instrument, but you don't have that facility for the timeline. It's in the speaker gadget. So they've separated all the things that I think ought to be in a timeline into the speaker gadget. Separated it up. So personally, I think all of this functionality should be in the timeline. But they've made it as a separate gadget. There might be no really good reason for it, but there you go. There it is. Right, what does this do then? Okay, this speaker will pick up any and all music timelines in the world. It will, and sound effects and the whole lot. It will play the whole lot. So if you plug it in the world and you've got sound effects and music and all sorts of things in your world, it's going to pick up all of them. It's going to play them all at the same time. Now, obviously, that isn't something you're going to want to do. So I recommend you use a microchip and put your speaker and the sounds that you want the speaker to make inside its own microchip. This can be moved any way you like. It doesn't have to be connected to the microchip, but I find it's probably a good idea to stick the center onto your microchip, so it's really difficult to do, so that the microchip and your sound are connected up together. So there we go. I can now put that microchip anywhere I want. Okay, let's turn that on, and hopefully as we walk towards it, it will get louder as we move towards. I think I might have left the speaker there, yeah. Make sure it's, like I say, with the microchip. So if you move it, make sure you move it with the microchip. There you go. Anyway, as we move away, it's quieter. As we get closer, it's louder. Okay, that's your 3D panning, and that's available inside the speaker on the second tab, and you can change that here. So it comes out of the speaker, or it comes out rear speakers. You can change the width of the stereo. For those of you who are familiar with surround sound settings, this will make sense. To those of you who are not, it won't make any sense at all, and there's no point in me explaining it because it doesn't make sense to me either. The last option on here is to put the sound to come out of the controller, so that's how you set up that. Right, so there is our piece of music. Okay, so I can duplicate that microchip over here, and so we can have that piece of music played in two different places. So it's there and there. They're playing independently of each other, but we've got the sound. There we go, in two different places, and we can change the piece of music to something else. Still be playing that other piece. There we go. Let's go over here. Now both of these are using their own panning, so there is no like trigger zone setting these things off. Now you could, if you wanted, instead of using the 3D panning of the speaker, and let's just move that down, 3D panning of the speaker, you could turn that off. That's on the third tab. That's turned off, and now this will play everywhere. But you'll want to put in some sort of trigger zone and wire that to the power. And this way you can set this up so that they can walk into the zone and they'll hear the music. You can set this so that it's got a zone fall off. Let's see what happens when we try this. We're going to just select the imp. Okay, so we're going to move in. As well with the 3D panning, it's a bit more sort of on or off. But there we go. That's the other way of doing it with a trigger zone, and it depends on really on how you want these things to set off. Do you want these to be playing and you move towards it, which is a bit more natural, or do you want it so that when you walk into the zone the music starts? And it will be depending on your gameplay as to which way you need it to work. But you don't need a trigger zone necessarily. But don't forget that if you've turned off the 3D panning, then it's going to play all the time. So if you've got multiple ones around, you're going to end up with a cacophony of all of them playing at the same time. which is not necessarily what you want. So there we go. That is the simplest way of describing what the speaker does. And let's have a look at the sliders and effects. So we've got volume, that's obvious, delay and reverb. So let's play. There we are. So you can make it sound like it's in a hall or something. And that's really good to be able to do that with a whole piece of music rather than have to do it with each individual instrument. Now here is a number of sounds. I recommend you put it on 20 as a default. It's to make sure you get as much of that music as possible. It's possible that you might not get everything, but I would have thought 20 is probably the maximum the amount of sounds it will play anyway. But if you have less than the music actually contains, you'll get interesting effects like this. Now that might be really handy for certain effects where maybe when they collect the object or something, then suddenly they get more of the music. So you can dynamically change the amount of songs that this will pick up, amount of sounds this will pick up with this wire. So you can do that. Now this piece of music is not set to loop, so that's just going to stop, which is no good for demonstration purposes. But anyway, here we go. That's what that set slider's done. We've already covered that. This is the fade zone, so you can see the pink ball there and all of these surrounding things. You can change the size of that. And the outer radius, so it picks it up much further away. And the reverb, you can change how that is picked up. And there is something called a distance muffle, which will muffle the sound when you're at distance. And you can move this around. Again, if you're very familiar with sound wave technologies and everything, you'll know more what to do with that than anything. But experiment with it and you can play about with it. The envelope, you can use this to make visualizers. It's not as effective as using it on individual instruments, and it depends on the piece of music whether or not this is effective or not. But if you link it to the envelope to something like this light, there we go, that's, you see when that turned that, it's going with time with the beat of the music. So you could use that to make a visualizer in the world for the entire piece of music, and then you could pick out individual instruments and use their envelopes to have other things going on. But that's the missing part, if you like, of the timeline. Other thing you can do is you can name your speaker. So let me let's name this one. I'm going to call it Fred for no reason whatsoever. Let's go stick it over here. So inside this piece of music, I'm going to what's good. This piano. Let's use this piano. So this piano is only going to play out of the speaker called Fred. Okay. So this is playing the music now, but you can see the piano's missing. The piano is now coming out of Fred. So this might be useful for you. I don't know quite circumstances, but you can have different noises coming out of different speakers if you name them. Excuse me, I was going to sneeze. Right, so there you go. These speakers can be named, and you can individually. You can't do it for the piece of music. There's nothing that gives you that option on the timeline. Again, it's missing that functionality. So you can't specify a piece of music for a specific speaker, but you can specify a particular instrument to a specific speaker. So technically, you could go through every single instrument in the timeline and name it Fred, and then it will play out of just this speaker. But like I say, you pop it into a microchip and it does that functionality for you. So that's not really what that's used for. This is more used for things like separation. So if I put them both in this microchip, they should both, and if I just check, let's put that with this one. Now it's playing everything. Right, so let's put in let's put in a controller sensor. I mean, this is just so I got an input. So if I press L1, it turns on that speaker. Okay. L1. L1 off. L1 on. So, for example, if you had a situation, you could isolate a part of the music so that if somebody had something picked up, then this speaker would work. And if they didn't have something, they weren't holding something in their hands, then that instrument doesn't play. And so you could get a really interesting effect with the music, so that the music is different if you're carrying something than the music is when you're not carrying something like that. It's useful for that sort of thing. So if you can't think of a reason for using it, there's a reason. It's just to make dynamic music. It's a way of doing that. It's a really interesting little gadget, and like I say, it's not something that many people use, and I can't say I've used it very often at all. But it has its uses, and certainly adds to what the timeline can do. And it also allows you to have music coming out of radios and things like that in your world that's a little bit more realistic, and you don't need to put in trigger zones and things like that. It can just put in the actual gadget in the microchip, and you're done. So there we go. Hope that was useful for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.